Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are embarking on a really fascinating journey deep into the minds of the ancient Egyptians. We're going to peel back the layers of history to see exactly how they constructed their incredible, wildly complex worldview, and how they managed to make sense of a universe that, frankly, often felt overwhelmingly unpredictable.
What happens after I die? Or why did this happen to me? These are such universal, timeless questions. We agonize over them today, and the ancients were asking those exact same things thousands of years ago. But here is the absolutely crucial thing to understand right out of the gate. When the Egyptians answered these questions, they weren't just making up cute fairy tales around a campfire. They were formulating deeply practical, highly psychological frameworks. They desperately needed a way to survive and find meaning in a terrifyingly chaotic world. For them, mythology was literally the ultimate survival tool.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. The everyday mythic life and how they found order in all that chaos.
To really grasp the Egyptian mindset, we have to look at how they viewed the natural world. For them, it wasn't just some static backdrop. It was this endless, repeating daily cycle of creations, destructions, and rebirths. Order was constantly battling chaos right in front of their eyes. Think about it. Today, modern science tells us the sun is a massive sphere of nuclear reactions pulling us in orbit. But in ancient Egypt, they looked up at that exact same blinding light and saw the sun god, Re, actively sailing across the sky in his daily bark. We are both observing the exact same natural phenomena. We're just drawing very different and, in their case, deeply comforting conclusions to explain it.
Picture this. You're living in a world completely at the mercy of violent, unpredictable desert storms, surrounded by deadly scorpions and venomous snakes. It's a lot to handle. But this mythic filter completely transformed a terrifying, uncaring reality into a highly ordered, purposeful universe. The sun wasn't just moving on its own. The hawk-headed god Re was actively steering his boat across the sky, which meant, thankfully, someone was at the wheel.
And that brings us to a concept I absolutely love: the everyday hero. In ancient Egypt, a normal person was actually the hero of their own mythic story. Say you had a terrible splitting headache. Well, you weren't just a sick person suffering in a mud brick house. You were, temporarily, the child god Horus being lovingly cared for by his powerful mother Isis. By invoking these divine precedents, ordinary people assimilated themselves with the gods. They drew real strength and a sense of explanation for their daily, mundane struggles.
Moving right along to Section 2, piecing together the puzzle and the massive challenge of history.
Trying to reconstruct these beliefs today is a monumental challenge. We're dealing with a totally fragmented timeline stretching over 3,000 years. An Egyptian priest named Manetho originally divided these eras into dynasties for us. But across these vast, sweeping ages, Egyptian myths weren't just frozen in stone. They constantly adapted. They soaked up brand new flavors from foreign influences like the Greeks and the Romans, and they varied wildly from one province to the next. So, spoiler alert, there is no single universally correct version of any myth.
There's this brilliant quote from a scholar that hits the nail on the head. They said, reconstructing Egyptian mythology is like trying to piece together a jigsaw puzzle when the majority of the pieces are missing and someone has thrown away the box. It's so true. Our main sources, like the pyramid texts carved deep into tombs, the coffin texts, and the famous Book of the Dead, are often just these cryptic allusions. They didn't bother writing down the full stories because, well, at the time, everyone already knew them.
All right, let's get into Section 3, understanding the gods. And trust me, they are incredibly flawed, flexible, and surprisingly human.
If you're picturing perfect, all-knowing, omniscient beings, yeah, you can go ahead and scratch that. These gods are incredibly human. They squabble, they fight, they literally murder each other, and they can even die of old age before being reborn. And this drama perfectly illustrates an absolutely crucial concept called syncretism. Because these gods had restricted powers, they would frequently emerge together. For example, the alien sun god didn't have the power to re-energize himself, so every single night he would merge with Osiris, basically borrowing Osiris's regenerative force just so the sun could be born again the next morning. It's the ultimate cosmic teamwork.
So where did it all begin? Section 4, the shared creation foundation and finding order from the deep.
Despite all those varying local traditions we talked about, the Egyptians actually shared a unified foundation of how the universe began. And that deep foundational starting point is Nun. Nun was the pre-creation universe. Imagine an infinite, pitch-black, motionless ocean. Totally silent, totally still. But and this is where the Egyptians were incredibly optimistic, they didn't view this chaotic darkness as some evil, scary void. To them, none was a place of unbelievable generative potential. It was the fertile water where the very seed of order lay patiently waiting to sprout.
Which brilliantly sets up our next part. Section 5, Sculpting the Universe, and the Grand Design.
Sometime around the New Kingdom, the priesthood at Thebes figured out a genius way to unify the different creation traditions. They built this complex, three-part mechanical process where the world is literally willed into existence. I absolutely love this analogy because it makes it so clear. Think of creation as a grand art commission. First, you have a wealthy benefactor with a massive vision. That's the god Amun. Second, you have the master craftsman hired to do the actual sculpting. That's the god Ptah. And third, you need the block of clay, the physical raw material that gets molded, and that is the god Atum. Let's break these three down real quick.
Step 1 is Amun. He is the ultimate hidden deity, existing way out beyond the infinite waters of Nun. He is the one who began speaking in the midst of silence to conceive the world. And get this, he was so incredibly secret and hidden that knowing his true identity would instantly strike you dead. No joke. He is the brilliant mind that sparked the entire idea of the universe.
Then we have Step 2, Ptah, the divine craftsman. Ptah represents the raw intellectual power of the creative mind. He uses divine perception, authoritative utterance, and literal magic to take Amun's invisible silent thoughts and translate them into a hard, physical reality. He's the transformative force, and he's often merged with Tatanen, who is the personification of the very first land to rise up out of those infinite waters.
Finally, Step 3, Atum, the raw material. Atum was known as the finisher. Before creation even kicked off, he existed essentially as a pre-Big Bang singularity floating inside the dark waters of Nun, completely numb and inert. He only wakes up to full consciousness when his heartbeat is finally initiated, and he takes a breath, inhaling his daughter, the goddess of order and moisture.
Once he's awake, Atum evolves into the physical universe by ejecting his twin children. You have his son Shu, who represents the dry atmospheric void, literally physically pushing the sky apart from the earth, and then his daughter Tefnut, representing moisture. Together, these two create the spatial limits and the exact conditions required so that life can finally actually thrive in the universe. It's the ultimate cosmic building project.
So it all builds up to this glorious, explosive moment. Atum finally subtracts the waters of Nun to reveal the remainder, the very first mound of Earth. This primeval mound, often represented by a pyramidion, is the true grand inspiration behind the Great Pyramids of Egypt. They aren't just tombs, they're a massive architectural celebration of the universe's birth. And that brings us to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with today. If you stood in their sandals, how would this myth change your world? Really think about it. We often look back at ancient myths as primitive, but this was an incredibly empowering, highly sophisticated psychological framework. It took a chaotic, profoundly dangerous world and turned it into a story of absolute order, where even a simple daily chore was directly tied to the divine creation of the universe itself. It is a true testament to the sheer genius of the Egyptian mind. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you wanting to uncover even more about their fascinating world.